In America, $500,000 barely buys a modest retirement property in a mid-tier city. In these 6 countries, a single $40,000 apartment can generate rental income, reduce living costs, and in some cases, open a direct path to legal residency. That is not a loophole. That is geography working in your favor. Most people planning for retirement anchor their thinking to the market they grew up in. They assume that retirement security requires enormous capital, a paid-off home in a high-cost country, and decades of savings. But that assumption breaks down the moment you start comparing property prices, rental yields, and monthly living costs across different countries. The formula being explored here is straightforward. Buy a low-cost property in a high-demand rental market. Let that property generate income. Use that income to offset or fully cover local living costs. And in several cases, that same property purchase can trigger a path to long-term residency or even retirement visa eligibility. 6 countries fit this model particularly well right now. One of them quietly brings the entire formula together in a way that most people have never considered. Stay through to the end, because that last country is where the math becomes genuinely surprising. Starting with a country most people associate with scuba diving and hidden beaches, but are quickly discovering has real retirement infrastructure behind it. Belize sits in Central America, English-speaking, Caribbean-facing, and increasingly attractive to North American retirees and investors. Property in areas like Caye Caulker and parts of the ambergris Caye surrounding region can still be found in the $35,000 to $55,000 range for small apartments and condos in 2026. The island of Caye Caulker in particular has seen growing interest from short-term rental investors because of its low-key backpacker and dive tourism economy. Rental yields in tourist-facing areas of Belize have been estimated in the range of 7 to 10% gross annually, depending on occupancy and location. A small furnished unit near the water, listed on short-term rental platforms during peak season, can generate meaningful monthly income relative to the original purchase price. Property taxes in Belize are notably low by international standards. Annual property tax on a modest residential unit can often come in under $100 US per year. That is not a typo. Running costs on a small rental property can be extraordinarily lean. Now here is where Belize separates itself from most options in this video. The Qualified Retirement Program, known as the QRP, allows qualifying individuals over the age of 45 to gain official residency status in Belize. The program requires proof of at least $2,000 per month in pension or retirement income. Participants gain the ability to import personal and household goods duty-free, and the country offers straightforward English language bureaucracy, which removes a significant barrier for North American retirees. But Belize's biggest advantage is not the beaches or even the tax rate. It is the combination of English language infrastructure, Caribbean tourism demand, and a formal government program designed to attract retirees. That is a rare alignment. For anyone traveling to scout Belize or any of these destinations, a Saily eSIM link is available in the description for affordable mobile data without roaming charges. Moving across the Atlantic now to a country that most people still associate with being undiscovered. Montenegro is a small Adriatic nation that has been steadily building its reputation as one of Europe's most interesting real estate plays. Towns like Budva and the area around the Bay of Kotor draw significant summer tourism. Coastal apartment prices in Budva can still be found in the $40,000 to $65,000 range for smaller one-bedroom units in 2026, though prices have been rising as awareness increases. Here is a comparison that puts things in perspective. In some Adriatic towns, apartments still cost less than a parking space in London. That gap is not closing as quickly as people expect. Rental yields in Budva's short-term market have been estimated at 8 to 11% gross during peak summer season, though off-season demand is more limited. Investors who rent long-term to expats or remote workers find more consistent occupancy, but at reduced nightly rates. Montenegro is currently a candidate for European Union membership. That process is ongoing and not guaranteed to produce results quickly, but the trajectory matters for property investors. EU candidacy tends to attract foreign investment, raises property standards, and historically has increased real estate values in neighboring candidate countries over time. Which of these countries feels most realistic so far? Leave a comment below, because the next 3 get progressively more interesting. Montenegro's long-term upside may actually be the real story. Not the current rental yield, but what happens to a $40,000 coastal apartment if and when EU accession becomes a reality. That potential value appreciation layered on top of existing rental income creates a 2-layer return that most European markets stopped offering a decade ago. Now moving to a country that has developed a very specific reputation among a very specific type of investor. Georgia, the country, not the state, has become a quiet favorite among people who track international property markets carefully. Tbilisi, the capital, has seen significant growth in short-term rental demand, driven largely by digital nomads, remote workers, and budget-conscious European travelers. The city has a lively food and wine culture, fast internet infrastructure in most neighborhoods, and a reputation for being genuinely affordable. Property ownership in Georgia is relatively straightforward for foreigners. There are no major restrictions on foreign nationals purchasing real estate. Apartments in Tbilisi neighborhoods popular with expats and tourists, such as Vera, Vacay, and parts of Old Town, can still be found in the $30,000 to $55,000 range for smaller units in 2026. Rental yields on Airbnb-style short-term rentals in Tbilisi have been reported in the range of 9 to 12% gross in high-demand areas. Long-term rental demand from the digital nomad community also remains consistent. Georgia operates a flat income tax system and has no property tax on residential real estate below a certain value threshold. That combination of easy ownership rules and low tax friction is what makes Georgia stand out. There is one reason investors quietly favor Georgia more than much of Europe. It is not just the yield, it is the absence of bureaucratic friction. Buying property, setting up a rental, and managing it remotely is genuinely simpler in Georgia than in many EU countries, with higher price tags and more regulatory complexity. For checking flight prices into Tbilisi from anywhere in the world, the Kiwi flight search link is available in the description. The next country on this list is one of the most misunderstood retirement destinations in the world. Mexico, when people imagine buying property there, often think of beach towns like Puerto Vallarta or Tulum, where prices have climbed significantly. But the interior cities tell a very different story. Mérida in the Yucatan Peninsula has become one of Mexico's most talked about expat destinations. Colonial homes and apartments in Mérida can be found in the $30,000 to $60,000 range, with strong long-term rental demand from the growing expat and retiree community. Guanajuato, a UNESCO World Heritage City, offers similar price points with its own expat-friendly environment. Querétaro, further north, has seen rising expat interest due to its modern infrastructure and relatively low cost of living. In parts of Mexico, yearly property taxes can still cost less than 1 month of HOA fees in Florida. That single comparison explains a lot about why more retirees are making the move. Healthcare in Mexico's interior cities is a major draw. Private medical care in Mérida and Querétaro is a fraction of U.S. prices, with many expats reporting comprehensive private health insurance for well under $200 per month. Rental yields on furnished apartments targeting expats and long-stay renters in Mérida and Guanajuato tend to run between 7 and 10% gross annually. These are not peak season holiday numbers. These are consistent, year-round yields driven by real demand from people relocating long-term. Would owning property abroad ever appeal to you? It is worth thinking about before reaching the final country in this video, because that one may change the calculation entirely. The next country gets less attention than it deserves, but investors who follow Southeast Asia closely have known about it for years. Vietnam has one of the stronger cases for retirement lifestyle arbitrage in the world right now. Da Nang, on the central coast, combines beach access, international airport connectivity, and one of the lowest costs of living of any beach city in Southeast Asia. The property ownership structure in Vietnam is more complex for foreigners than in some other countries. Foreign nationals can typically purchase condominiums under 50-year lease structures rather than freehold ownership. This is an important distinction and should be researched carefully before any purchase. However, the rental income potential on those units is very real. Furnished apartments in Da Nang, popular with tourists and expats, can be purchased in the $40,000 to $60,000 range. Gross rental yields in the short-term market have been reported between 8 and 11% in well-located properties. A few $100s per month in Vietnam can still buy a surprisingly comfortable lifestyle. In Da Nang specifically, monthly expenses for a single person, including rent, food, transportation, and entertainment, can come in under $800 to $1,000 depending on lifestyle choices. That number is remarkable by any Western comparison. Tourism in Da Nang has grown significantly over the past decade. International arrivals, regional travel from within Asia, and the nomad community have all contributed to strong and growing short-term rental demand. For exploring accommodation options and pricing in Da Nang and other cities in this video, the Expedia hotel link is available in the description. Now for the country that brings every element of this formula together in the most complete way. Paraguay rarely appears on mainstream retirement or investment radar. That is precisely why it deserves this level of attention. Asunción, the capital, is one of the most affordable capitals in South America. Apartments in residential areas of Asunción can be found in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. Monthly living costs for a retired couple can realistically run between $1,200 and $1,800 depending on lifestyle. Paraguay operates with very low income tax exposure for foreign-sourced income and no wealth tax. Property taxes are minimal by regional standards. The permanent residency route in Paraguay is considered one of the more accessible in South America. Applicants can qualify by demonstrating a stable monthly income, typically around $1,500 per month, or by making a qualifying financial deposit. The process, while requiring proper legal guidance, is generally considered more straightforward than comparable programs in Europe or North America. This is where the entire formula finally locks into place. A $40,000 apartment in Asunción, generating 8 to 10% gross rental yield, brings in $3,200 to $4,000 per year. In a city where annual living costs for a single person can run $14,000 to $18,000, that rental income covers 20 to 25% of total expenses before any other retirement income is factored in. Add Paraguay's low tax structure, affordable healthcare, and accessible residency pathway, and the full picture emerges. This is the complete formula. A $40,000 property generates rental income. That income reduces monthly living costs. Lower living costs mean existing retirement savings last longer. And the property purchase itself, in several of these countries, creates a pathway toward legal long-term residency. That is not a speculative strategy. It is a practical arbitrage that exists right now because property prices, living costs, and currency values are not uniform across the world. Most people simply never think to look. 6 countries, 6 different versions of the same core principle. Whether it is beach tourism in Belize, Adriatic growth in Montenegro, digital nomad demand in Georgia, expat retirement infrastructure in Mexico's interior cities, Southeast Asian lifestyle value in Vietnam, or the complete formula coming together in Paraguay, the same logic holds. $40,000 abroad can create more financial freedom than $400,000 anchored to a high-cost home market. For anyone exploring this further, subscribing to this channel keeps these global arbitrage, residency, and relocation breakdowns coming. There is a lot more geography worth understanding.